Hello, good evening and welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. It is live from our studio here at Desawe Kanda in Accra and also on our website 3news.com. Coming up this evening, deep cracks at the Labour front as Ghana Federation of Labour pulls out of the May Day celebration slated for tomorrow, the 1st of May. Also, more than 40 invigilators have been banned from supervising this year's Basic Education Certificate Examination, the BECE, in what authorities describe as a serious crackdown on examination malpractice. And later in the bulletin, third prosecution witness reveals details of transfer of funds made to companies formed by Edubuahin, who is the former Director General of the Signals Bureau. Details of all of these and more, plus business and sports, coming your way for the next 1 hour. Before that, though, let's bring you the news summaries with Noura Mohammed. Hello.
Hello, Martin. First in the summaries, the Chief Executive Officer of Gold Board, Sami Jemfi, has announced that the Daman gold mine, owned by businessman Ibrahim Mahama, has sold 100% of its first gold output to Gold Board and the Bank of Ghana to support the country's national reserves. According to him, the development represents a significant step toward strengthening Ghana's gold reserves and enhancing foreign exchange stability. Also in the summaries, there is no trace of revenue accruing from 60 Ullo buses that were transferred to Kumasi since 2018. A preliminary probe into the operations of the buses has revealed the initial investigations into the operations of the Ullo buses over the past 8 years also revealed improper accountability and an operational plan for the buses, leading to the grounding of 44 of the fleet. Meanwhile, more than 40 invigilators have been barred from supervising this year's Basic Education Certificate Examination BECE as part of a decisive move by the Ghana Education Service GES to clamp down on examination malpractice. The sanctions follow findings that the affected officials engaged in various forms of misconduct during last year's examinations, raising widespread concerns about the credibility and fairness of the system. Also, the Accra Metropolitan Assembly AMA has announced that this year's ban on drumming and noise making will take effect from Monday, May 4 to Thursday, June 4, 2026 within the Ga traditional area. In a public notice, the Assembly said the directive, instituted in collaboration with the Ga Traditional Council, is aimed at preserving peace, harmony and national security during the annual observance ahead of the Homowo Festival. And finally, the Kolebu Doctors Association has threatened to embark on an industrial strike at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital from May 2 if a set of demands on laboratory operations and proposed outpatient service reforms are not addressed by the close of Thursday, April 30, 2026. In a formal notice, the association said its members will withdraw services if management fails to immediately address what it describes as serious threats to patient safety and professional standards, particularly the exclusion of laboratory physicians from the hospital's central laboratory and the proposed rollout of 24-hour specialist outpatient services. And that'll be all for the summaries. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Noura, for the other stories making headlines. Let's settle for the ones we have lined up for you. We're starting from the courts now, and the third prosecution witness in the trial of former Director General of the National Signals Bureau, that is Kwabena Edubuahin, and two others, has revealed details of cash transactions and withdrawals and money transfers which she was authorized to make by the accused persons as the one operating a company created by the accused persons for the purchase and the purpose of moving cash of these huge sums. On Wednesday, the 29th of April, Mildred Donko, the third prosecution witness for the state in the trial, took to the witness box and was led in evidence in chief by state attorneys from the Attorney General's department and made these revelations in her witness statement, which was adopted by the court. Mildred, who had earlier in the trial been withdrawn from prosecution as an accused person by the Attorney General to serve as a witness, told the court that she was made a director of the fourth accused person's company, which is called the Advantage Solutions, which is a shareholder of a fictitious company, the BNC Communications Limited Solutions. She said that Edubuahin brought her the company registration documents at home and asked her to sign to become a director, and further instructed her to open a bank account for that company. According to the witness, she was also made a director of 7 other companies which she believes are owned by Kwabena Edubuahin. So it gives an idea of what exactly took place in court today, where this particular witness, who is a former worker, her name is Mildred Donko, a former worker for Kwabena Edubuahin, the former Director General of the National Signals Bureau, chose to testify for government or for the state, and by doing so she is now testifying against her employer and the companies that the employer employed her for, the companies that she was working for. And it turns out that she said she was asked to sign some documents which were brought to her at home by Kwabena Edubuahin in the very early stages of the setting up of the company. So she became a director of one of the companies. The key role she played included withdrawing sums of monies and transferring them to other persons or other companies believed to be owned by Kwabena Edubuahin. And she also told the court that she was made a director of 7 other companies which she believes are also owned by Kwabena Edubuahin. So she is now testifying for the state against her former boss. We'll give you updates on all of these subsequent bulletins. But proceedings continue today in the trial involving Akonta Mining and its alleged activities in the Tano Nimrim forest, with the High Court admitting a key file report into evidence despite objections from the defense. Deborah Abba-Mensah was in court and reports that the case has since been adjourned to the 11th of May 2026. And we'll also try and update you on what exactly the interest has been. So let's listen in. All right, so we'll try and bring you that insert shortly about the report from the courts, and then also to find out what exactly the next line of action would be. Now that the case against Akonta Mining and its owner, who is the current regional chairman of the NPP, he is in court for a number of alleged violations. So today's proceedings, we're told that it continued. However, the issue at the High Court was that they admitted a key file report into evidence despite the objections from the Akonta Mining Company. Our reporter who was in court has filed this report.
In court on Thursday, May 30, Senior State Attorney Nanama Prempe argued for the admission of a fire service report linked to an incident at Samreboy, which the prosecution says is connected to the operations of the first accused, Akonta Mining. Counsel for the second accused, Andy Apia, could be objected to the document, arguing that the witness was neither the author of the report nor properly connected to the Ghana National Fire Service. He further contended that the defense had not been served with the document and urged the court to reject it. However, the prosecution maintained that the objection was misplaced, citing provisions under Section 126 of the Evidence Act. The prosecution argued that the report, having been prepared by a fire officer in the course of duty, met the conditions for admissibility. The presiding judge overruled the objection and admitted the document, indicating that it could be relied upon during cross-examination. The principal witness, a former general manager of Akonta Mining, Edward Akwaku, told the court that the trucks involved were transporting washing plants into the Tano Nimri forest. He said these activities were carried out under the direction of the company's operational team, which he indicated was largely controlled by Chinese nationals. According to the witness, although the second accused, Bernard Enchiboesiakun, was not physically present during operations, major decisions were influenced by him. The witness claimed that instructions were often issued through informal channels and implemented by the operational team, including himself. Under cross-examination, the witness admitted that he does not have formal legal training as he did not complete his LLB. He also confirmed that his appointment as general manager was not documented but was based on what he described as an endorsement by the second accused. Defense counsel challenged the credibility of the witness, suggesting that the second accused did not involve him in decision-making or operational directives. The witness rejected the claim, insisting that he played a central role in implementing instructions attributed to the second accused. Tensions briefly rose when defense counsel attempted to introduce a letter allegedly linked to the company's operations. The prosecution objected, stating that the document had not been disclosed and lacked essential features, including a letterhead. The court upheld the objection and declined to admit the document. Subsequently, the prosecution presented another letter. It said it did not intend to rely on, but was obligated to disclose. The court directed that the document be filed and served on the defense via WhatsApp. The case has been adjourned to May 11, 2026 for further proceedings, and the appeal could be cancelled for Bernard Enchibuesiakon, speaking to the media after proceedings, maintained that the witness was never appointed as a manager by Akonta Mining.
And if you have not been called as a witness, you cannot dispute a claim. So if somebody is in court and says that I'm who I am, it is for the court to investigate to find out whether he is who he is. So it is not incumbent on anybody outside the court to just jump into the court and say that he is not what he says he is. It is an issue of capacity that will be determined by a court. If it is raised, but granted that capacity may not have been raised, then there was no onus on the court to investigate the background to see whether or not he had that capacity.
And you heard Andy Apiakubi ended that report.
In court on Thursday, May 30, Senior State Attorney
You heard that Andy Apiakubi, who is lawyer for Akonta Mining, and Bernard Enchibuesiakon, many know him as the chairman, won to me, ending that report about what happened in court today. Before we take you to our next story, stay with us. When we return from this quick breather, we'll be updating you on the latest report from the Ghana Education Service, which says that about 40 invigilators have been banned from supervising this year's BECE. Why? Details in a moment. Welcome back to 3FM 92.7. This is Hot Edition, live from our studio here at Adisanwe Kanda in Accra. Let's go to some other stories this evening, and more than 40 invigilators have been banned from supervising this year's Basic Education Certificate Examination, the BECE, in what authorities describe as a serious crackdown on examination malpractice. The Ghana Education Service says the offenders were caught last year engaging in acts that undermine the integrity of the country's education system, an act that have left many questioning the fairness of the examination process. Meanwhile, 620,141 candidates will sit for this year's BECE examination. Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Professor Ernest Davis, was addressing a news conference in Accra where he made these revelations.
At the end of the day, the results of the student who cheated in the examination will never reflect the student's true academic capability. This often leads to wrong judgment of learning outcomes in the country and has the tendency to affect formulation of education policy in our country. A number of examination malpractice cases were recorded last year. Management of Ghana Education Service and WAEC have therefore embarked on sensitization of the Ghanaian populace to appreciate the harmful effect of examination malpractice on educational development in our country. As I speak with you, our regional directors across the country are embarking on aggressive sensitization exercise to ensure that we conduct successful BECE examination with minimal examination malpractice. I urge all students to prepare very well for the examinations. There is no need for students to panic or fear or be anxious because the questions will definitely come from the syllabus or the curriculum. The questions will therefore be within their experience. They should not expect external help in the exams room or APO because we will do everything possible to ensure that students don't get APO. APO doesn't find its way into the exams hall. I urge all supervisors and invigilators to maintain the highest standard of professionalism. Those who are caught aiding cheating will be severely punished. I wish to remind all supervisors and regional directors of education that all teachers and supervisors who were linked to examination malpractice last year and are being processed for sanctions are banned from the examination centers. They are not expected to have anything to do with the examinations. We expect you to follow the directive strictly. Letters have been sent to all regional directors.
So you heard the voice of the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, who has been addressing the media there, especially helping us understand some of the key reforms that they intend to roll out. And one of the key issues that we are looking at has to do with the suspension, in fact, the total ban that has been placed on some invigilators. Joining us on the phone lines now is Kofi Asare, who is the Executive Director for the Africa Education Watch, EduWatch. Mr. Asare, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Hi, good evening.
You have been a strong advocate and one who consistently condemned the malpractices we record every examination cycle, be it senior high school or junior high exams. What do you make of this news about the decision to ban some invigilators?
Well, what I know is that in other jurisdictions, teachers who are involved in cheating, who are involved in examination corruption, in June 2025, by now, are no longer teaching. They are being prosecuted, or they have been prosecuted by now, 1 year after. If I compare that continental best practice to what we have in Ghana, where teachers who were linked to examination corruption in 2025, 1 year after, we are now being told that directives have been issued that they shouldn't participate in invigilation. And that means that they are still in the classroom and they have been teaching. And indeed, those who were caught on live cameras through our partners undercover documentary at Debbie Avenue and then St. George's Anglican, all in Accra Metro, where about 12 schools had the examination. As we speak, everyone who was investigated, who was implicated in the video, is still at post. So if the norm is that teachers can participate actively in examination corruption and still be fit to teach in the classroom while they are being investigated without interdiction, and then when it's a week to examination, the next examination, we are told that they are banned from going as invigilators. Then it essentially means that one is bad enough not to be an invigilator of a basic school examination, but when it comes to teaching in the basic school, they are good enough. I'm sorry, the GES has not demonstrated sufficient institutional will to tackle examination malpractice head-on, and this is one sad example.
So if I hear what you're saying, you mean although yes, there's a directive that they should not be anywhere near exam centers, that is not deterrent enough, especially when there is evidence to some level that they participated in examination corruption, as you have termed it.
It is not a deterrent. I don't want to say deterrent. It's not deterrent. If a teacher weren't a teacher, would they have been humiliating? No. And so, if you are being banned now, 1 week to the examination, the next year's examination, you are being banned from participating as a regulator, how good are you to remain in the classroom teaching? That's the point I want to make. You have been involved in alleged fraudulent activity, corruption. And so, even if investigations have been concluded, which I will be very, very surprised because it's 1 year now, even if investigations have been concluded, you should have been interdicted by now, as immediately privacy was established, including those who were caught on camera. But I'm saying that for those who were caught on camera, which we all have access to, the documentary published online, all of those teachers at Accra Metro, specifically Debbie Avenue and St. George's Anglican, the two centers, all the teachers are still at post. And they have been teaching since June, July last year. And so you can't tell me now that they are not fit to invigilate, but they are fit, they have integrity enough to remain in the classroom. I'm sorry. So we are not ready to fight examination malpractice. That is the evidence of what is happening and in the GES now. And it's a sad story.
So again, my understanding of what you're saying is that beyond just being banned from invigilating, they shouldn't even be in the classroom in the first place.
They shouldn't be in the classroom. what are you doing there? Because there's an integrity deficit on the basis of the allegation. And so if you are saying that investigations have not been concluded, so you shouldn't come for regulation, why should you go to the classroom? Because the same investigations is actually implicating your integrity. That's the point. The second point is that why are we even still investigating after 1 year? Let's be honest with ourselves. How long is it going to take to investigate an act of examination corruption caught on camera? How long? In the case of the Debbie Avenue and St. George's Roman Catholic Basic, we have followed through the investigation committee submitted a report last year. The committee that investigated the submitted report to the GS last year, not even this year. Chairman, last year. So I am saying that beyond the GES's own confusion of having a different threshold for who has integrity enough to invigilate and who should not invigilate because, various different standards being set for invigilation, where a teacher can be told that you have been banned from invigilating because you participated in examination corruption in the previous examination, but you are fit to teach. Apart from that, incongruity in standards, okay, no fit for purpose administrative process worth its sort, which is worth, among others, the benefit of deterrence, should take 1 year to investigate an act which is evidential in value. And the minimum practice is not imaginary. It is evidential in value. Okay, so 10 people invigilate an examination in a room. It emerges that you are involved in dishing out mobile phones to students. According to your own statement, mobile phones were given to students by the teachers and all that. You established that already. So why should it take 1 year to ban them from invigilating? Because they shouldn't have been in the classroom the next week. Immediately with this prima facie evidence, you commence investigation, they are interdicted until investigations are concluded. That's what happens in other jurisdictions. Even in Ghana, that's what happens in other agencies.
Right.
So why should we have a situation where teachers who have been implicated in such a corrupt activity are allowed to teach for 1 year, and then one is 1 year, 1 week's examination after a lot of pressure from civil society, and we are announcing that they are banned from vigilating. I'm sorry that the GES as an institution has not demonstrated the institution now to fight examination corruption. We have called the minister, and we are calling again that the Ministry of Education must support the GES to review its accountability mechanisms on examination corruption. Other than that, the GES itself lacks that institutional will to punish itself, but it is lacking.
Right. What is the alternative? If we've always had the system where it is the teachers that teach these pupils that end up invigilating, whether they are reshuffled or they are moved, maybe those in Accra East go to Accra West, etc., whichever way. But you are saying that asking teachers to who teach these kids to be the invigilators in and of itself is problematic. So what is the alternative in invigilating our kids?
The alternative is that there must be clear key performance indicators for school leaders. We have said it. A headmaster who allows examination fraud, examination corruption to take place in their school must be relieved of their position. That's the first thing. If that KPI is in the headmaster's contract, they will never, mark my words, they will never allow it to happen. Because the benefits would have outweighed the disbenefit of losing their position as headmaster. They will still be teachers, but they will not be headmasters. That one alone, problem half solved. Second, a teacher involved in invigilating examination corruption should not be allowed to teach. Your license is revoked. If you issue these two measures, I'm saying that no one will be going to take 100 CDs and risk losing their license. Or no one will allow someone to cheat while they are heads, and then they will lose their headship. But that's what you need to do. Once there's accountability, there will be responsibility. That's all. That's all. That's the only alternative. But this window dressing, we were investigating. We will see whether there's evidence. You see, it doesn't exude any confidence that the system is ready to exact accountability. But without accountability, there will not be any responsibility. And the thing we are trying to tackle is examination corruption. It's actually not an outlier. It's a norm. It's a subculture. So you don't curb it by doing outreaches. Years I've been doing outreach every year. They've been doing outreach on the examination practice. The more outreach they do, sensitize the teachers and the students, the higher the rate increases. As for the outreach, they should stop. It's wasteful.
Okay.
It's wasteful. And then you see they should invest their energies in building accountability systems. I'm saying that once the school head says it is not happening, it is not happening because they are losing their position.
Two final questions.
And pretend that doing outreach and telling students who already know that the thing is bad will stop.
Two final questions.
Doesn't work in the past.
Then you take leave of us. The next one will be, so this year we are told over 620,000 candidates are participating in the BECE. That's quite a number. Generally, 40 teachers. Comparing that to the pool of invigilators is, a drop in the ocean. Well, how would you advise that we maintain or at least lift the credibility of this year's exams?
I think the number of invigilators is low, but you saw that we have 2,000 when it comes to the supervisors. So it's not just the invigilators, but also the supervisors. And I think that the number of supervisors we saw being announced was quite encouraging. But again, the relation game or the supervision game is not just about numbers. It's about accountability. Normally, the headmaster is also a supervisor. It's a standard practice. So once we see the numbers, fine. It inspires confidence that they are deploying more boots on the ground. But there must be accountability to translate the quantity into quality. And so we hope that the juniors will sit down, reflect, and reform this whole accountability mechanisms towards examination corruption. Other than that, even if we deploy 2,000, 10,000 supervisors, and as I said, the headmaster is normally a supervisor. So if you will not sanction some of the supervisors because they are your own, and sanction them in the manner that deters, then I'm sorry, the number of booths will also amount to just numbers, but it must translate to quality. And that's why I want to see a review of the accountability framework to one that fully detects.
Right. Okay, so my last question, and maybe this might be a slight digression from the issues of malpractices. I'm thinking, and I've seen a comment come in on our YouTube stream right now asking that, is this the best way of assessing our BECE pupils, where they still have to write exams before they can progress to the next level of education in the country? Aren't there alternatives in maybe assessment throughout the terms that they've been in school, etc.? As someone in the space and having followed the education sector for all these years, what are the best practices elsewhere, or is this the best practice?
The world is moving away from high stakes and embracing more portfolio-based assessment, practical assessment, activity-based assessment than high-stake examinations to assess. And this includes also promoting more activity-based learning and then assessment during continuing assessment. And so if you really want to move with the world, then we have to be gradually, laying fewer emphasis on high stakes and then much more on activity-based learning, and assessment. BECE's relevance today, as we speak, it's not necessarily to progress to secondary school, because there's no failure in BECE. BECE, you don't get fail. You don't get fail. So there's nothing like someone has failed BECE. You get 8, you get 7, you get 6, but there's nothing like you have failed. It means that BECE doesn't determine whether you go to secondary or not. You will definitely go, whether you get hot or hot. You can still go to secondary school. Just that so you go. Okay. The only reason why we're having BECE is that BECE is showing who will go to Achimota Senior High School. and we will go to Canton Senior High School or Abra Duncan Offering Senior High Technical School. Okay. That's the only reason why we have BC in Ghana today for school placement. Now, it is on the basis of that Edward in 2024 submitted to the political parties that we must depart from this high stakes examination, because the relevance is no more one of certification of end or ending basic education, but it is now only for school placement. In the past, it was a certification examination that you have finished basic school, but now it is only for school placement. And so we recommend it to political parties. Our Edward's recommendation is that putting this pressure on students just to determine the school you go is not necessary, and that we should reduce the number of subjects to 4: Math, English, General Science, and then a general paper which will include sections on all the other relevant subjects, including the language, so that the student cannot say, I won't learn this, I won't learn that. If we do that, we'll be writing BC in 2 days per the current schedules, because we do 2 papers a day. If we did that, we'll be cutting down expenditure on BC from about 120 million to about 80 million. And so we have submitted this to the MPP in their manifesto said something similar to this in their 2024 manifesto.
Okay.
And so conversations around this should take place, because the current structure of the BC was designed when BC was a certification exam to certify that one has completed basic education, and then also a placement exam. Now it is only for the latter, just for placement purposes. And so there should be other ways less stressful of assessing students and their ability to either qualify for Achimota Presec on one side, or Canton or Benkum Senior High School on the other side.
Okay. Thank you. Hopefully, we would also see if we can raise this with the current administration and the education leadership to see if they will consider it, because, like you're saying, the world is moving away from this current system, and we need to update ourselves as well. Thank you very much, Kofi Asare, for your time and thoughts.
You're welcome.
He is the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch. What do you make of his propositions that beyond the current system we use to assess BECE students as to whether or not they get to continue in secondary school or not, how can we improve the system of assessment? And one of the propositions or the proposals is that you look at the entire from class 1 to class 6, then you look at the performance of the child, what he calls a portfolio-based assessment. Look at the works they've done, the marks they've got, areas of strength that they have. Then based on that, you can say, yes, this group qualified to move on, which is then going to be quite different from the system we have now, where everybody sits, whether they've learnt it or not, they still have to write. So your thoughts are very welcome on our YouTube stream, where this bulletin is also welcoming your comments on the many other stories we have for you this evening. Away from education matters, the National Federation of Labour says it will not be a part of this year's May Day celebration. The Federation says the decision follows unresolved concerns about inclusiveness and shared ownership of the annual workers' event. May Day, set for the 1st of May each year, is observed globally to honor the struggles of workers for better conditions, including the historic campaign for the 8-hour working day, and serve as a platform for labor advocacy and solidarity. But according to the Federation of Labour, the arrangements for this year's celebration has failed to reflect the collective voice of all organized labor groups, rather than be dominated by a single body. According to the Federation, an earlier consensus reached at a meeting over the delivery of speeches were rejected by the TUC, collapsing consensus across the labour front. Deputy Secretary General of the Ghana Federation of Labour, Kenneth Kumsin, has been speaking about the development.
There's a procedure that is always adopted in the determination of what goes into the program, okay? First of all, there's what we call the planning committee that includes officers of the various unions of organized labor. Now, that committee is chaired by the TUC Deputy Secretary General. Now, when the committee concluded its work, the program was presented to leadership of organized labor. We took a forensic look, a critical look at the program, and we realized that even though they had assembled officers from different unions the program did not reflect the status of organized labor. It was predominantly a TUC program. And obviously, when you see such a thing, it questions the very committee that appears to suggest an inclusive collective committee. Because it is just like a form against the substance. So we have the form, but the substance was devoid of anything that looks like collectivism. So we said, listen, let's meet and then look at the program so that it reflects the collective power and force of organized labor. This is where the problem is. We invited the TUC leadership to the Ghana Employees Association on the 16th of April. They never showed up at the meeting. We established contacts with the Secretary General, the Deputy. They never showed up. It was the GFL and Forum leadership that met there. And because we felt that, look, this is a matter we need to resolve, we sent them a resolution stating the reasons for which we think that they are absent creates a very big problem in terms of working together as organized labor. They responded to the letter on the 21st of April and said to us that their steering committee have already taken a decision. Obviously, that kind of response undermines the very reason for which organized labor exists. And let me be very frank with you. This is a legal matter. And GFS have taken notes, and we are going to take legal action. You can see, organized labor is not TUC. There are about 180 unions in this country. TUC only organizes 19 of them.
And you heard Kenneth Kumsin, who is the Deputy General Secretary, Deputy Secretary General of the Ghana Federation of Labour. Maybe one of these days I'll try and give you the difference between Secretary General and General Secretary, so then we don't have to confuse the two. Away from labour issues, let's go to Parliament, and the majority have been expressing a lot of confidence in the Ghanaian economy and praising the government for that. And this comes on the back of a number of press conferences by the minority side. So let's listen to what the majority have been saying. They say that the Bank of Ghana has so far incurred losses of 16.7 billion Ghana cedis in efforts to transform Ghana's economy. The caucus says government interventions over the years have led to lower inflation, reduced monetary policy and lending rates, as well as greater stability of the Ghanaian cedi. Addressing journalists as a member of the Finance Committee and MP for Sangnarigu, Ata Issa says that the measures have made the economy more resilient amid ongoing tensions in the Middle East.
For the family paying school fees, electricity and hospital costs, the stability is real. What lower inflation made possible? What made the lower inflation possible? The cost of 16.7 billion cost was incurred in 2025 through the Bank of Ghana open market operation, interest paid to absorb excess liquidity in the market. This led to inflation falling from 54.1% in 2022 to 3.2% in March this year. The monetary policy rate of government that forms the basis of the Ghana reference rate and the interbank rate fell from about 30%, that made cost of doing business so expensive, to about 14%. Lending rate has also fallen from about 35.6% in 2022 to 19.2% as at the end of 2025. Private capital demands, the real credit growth available to the private sector also grew by 0.2%, and it has increased also to about 15.3% by February 2026. Government cost collapse in terms of the 91 Treasury bill rate, moving from about 35.2% in 2022 to 9% as at February 2026. And then long-term planning returns through the fixed contracts and the 3-year investment, hiring plans became viable. And that's why you see a lot of development going on in the Bank of Ghana. And then confidence also surges. Consumer confidence has also increased from 79.2 percentage points to 111.7 percentage points as of January 2026. The stabilization of the cedi that we saw, which lost its value of 19% in 2024, for the first time in many years, gained its trend of 41% in 2025, and named the strongest currency of any emerging market in the world in 2025. The international reserve grew from 9.1 billion as at the end of 2024 to 13.8 billion as at the end of 2025, and now stood at 14.5 billion as at February 2026, the highest reserve Ghana has ever recorded in history. Policy rate has also seen a cut from 27% at the end of 2024 to 14% as at March 2026. The average lending rates have followed it down from 30.2% to 17.7%. That means cheaper loans for small business owners trying to expand, and farmer buying inputs, and trader who borrows to stock his shop, and the young couple buying for their first time. These are the costs or the benefit as a result of the cost done by the Bank of Ghana. Consider where we would have been today had this not work been done. If you wanted to reduce the equity position of government, consider the effect we would have been suffering as a result of that decision. Inflation would have still been high at about 23.8%. CD would have still been weakening week after week. Reserve running lower, lending rate above 30%, and all this happening in a global environment of war, of trade tariffs reshaping the international ecosystem, of capital flight from emerging markets and other economies in our region, and beyond all are still struggling with all these pressures.
And you had the majority in parliament there. You had the MP for Sangnarigu, who is a member of the finance committee, addressing the media, where he further indicated that the Bank of Ghana's gold purchasing program generated an estimated $11 billion in gains, despite recording an operational loss of 9 billion Ghana cedis. Let's turn our attention to health now, and government is intensifying efforts to protect adolescent girls against cervical cancer through the HPV vaccination. A high-level monitoring exercise took place in the Lejokuku municipality today, where officials of the health service observed an ongoing vaccination which targeted girls aged between 9 and 14 to select schools in selected schools as part of the 2026 Africa Vaccination Week, a continent-wide initiative aimed at promoting the life-saving benefits of vaccines and improving immunization coverage. Health officials are expected to encourage and engage with school authorities, students, and vaccination teams to ensure the smooth rollout of the program while addressing concerns and reinforcing public confidence in the vaccine. Let's engage Dr. Selom Kuchwati, who is the program manager for the expanded program on immunization. Doc, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM. Hello, Doc.
Good evening. I'm pleased to be here.
Great. Thank you for your time. To start with, what would you say is the main objective for this year's vaccination drive? What are we seeking to achieve? What numbers are we working with here? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. I'm saying this vaccination drive is something we do annually. The Africa Vaccination Week is it's a week that has been set aside to raise more awareness around vaccination. And the theme for this year is, for every generation, vaccines work. That basically implies that vaccination is not just for children, it's for what we call the life course. So from birth all the way to when you grow old, vaccinations work in every generation. And for us this year, we are looking at using the opportunity to reignite some more noise and a lot more activity around our human papilloma virus vaccine that we introduced last year in October. We're able to vaccinate 1.6 million girls, and we still have about 350,000 girls who were not able to reach. So we are hoping to use this exercise to be able to reach the girls, so the girls that we missed out. So far this time, between Monday and Tuesday, we were able to do about 45,000 girls that we have not vaccinated earlier. So for us, it's been quite a good work that we've done. The exercise is yielding fruit. We are seeing a lot more noise around it. We are seeing posters. We are seeing activities all over. And we are happy that the Africa Vaccination Week has been quite fruitful.
And what has the response been like? Yes, you are going out, trying to reach out, trying to vaccinate. A lot more campaign is being pushed, but are people receiving it? I'm asking this question on the back of a few years ago, earlier stories we had done indicated that some people had, some apprehension about the vaccines and, all sorts of myths and mystery about when vaccines are given to people, they may not have, or they may have some challenges. But how far have you been able to go with educating people, and how are they receiving this year's activities?
So I think that this year's activity, for the first 2 days, we're able to do about almost 45,000 girls. So that implies that the activity has been well received. I think last year when we started, people had not heard about HPV vaccine before. People were concerned about side effects. Pleased to say that between that time and now, we've been able to vaccinate over 1.6 million girls. I'm not sure any of the media houses has brought out any story or any parent has come to report any serious adverse events that have occurred due to their girls receiving the vaccine. So that is even more grounds for parents to step up and bring their girls, because those who are afraid that maybe something will happen to the girls, in more than 6 months, nothing has happened to those girls. And the girls are actually being protected against HPV. So any parent who has, there is any basis for that now. The vaccine is safe. The girls who have received it are all alive and in good health. So I think that for us so far so good. And we are hoping to see the rest of the figures as the days go by. Thank you.
Two final questions, then you take leave of us. One, why is it only girls being vaccinated? What happens to the boys, especially those within that same age range?
Okay, so the vaccine was introduced. Cervical cancer affects only women. I do admit that HPV also affects men and causes other types of cancers. However, because of the initial focus of the vaccine, which is why we started with the girls, but I do know that in the general plan that was submitted for the vaccination, there's a plan that in the future will add the boys. But we know that if we're able to vaccinate 80%, be protected, because then the vaccine, the number of the vaccine or the amount of vaccine circulating will be reduced, because the people who will be susceptible will be less. So we'll have less of the vaccine circulating. So the boys too would have some secondary protection. However, I know we have planned that in the future we'll introduce for the boys as well. So
right.
Rest easier.
Right. Thank you for that. And finally, after this week, can people still, receive these vaccines? Will the exercise continue after the Africa Vaccination Week we are observing?
Yes. So the vaccines are available everywhere. We are available since last year. And anybody who needs a vaccine, anybody whose daughter is between 9 to 14, any of our public facilities and request for the vaccine will be given. The cards will be issued to them immediately and they can go on. As far as going around the schools, engaging PTAs, the community members and other things. So after this is just to raise up a bit more noise, but the work will continue after this exercise. Thank you.
Thank you so much for making time to speak with us this evening. And
thank you too for having me.
Right, that is Dr. Selom Kuchwati, who is the programs manager for the expanded program on immunization, giving us an update on how the exercise, the Africa Vaccination Week program is going. If you're a girl between the ages of 9 and 14, you do need to get this vaccine as part of the drive to protect you going forward. This is 3FM 92.7. Stay with us. We have the latest in the world of sports right about now.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. My name is Andrew Sefa Bamfo. Let's start off from the camp of the Black Stars because former Ghana midfielder Kojo Asamoah says new Black Stars head coach Carlos Queiroz faces a difficult challenge ahead of the 2026 World Cup, with the Portuguese manager having less than 2 months to assemble his squad before the tournament officially kicks off. Ghana begin their campaign against Panama on June 17, and he spoke exclusively to 3 Sports.
Honestly, I can't say much, but the little I know is, to build a team needs time. And even with our national team now, I don't think we do really have like a starting 11 whereby even back then you could sit and just mention about 7 players that are going to start. Maybe 3 or 2 or 3 will probably change. But now it's like today this new whole team, the other time another different team, and then having another new coach, and then I think it's how many months for us to play the World Cup. It won't be easy for him. And even the players that he will need for the World Cup are now with their clubs. So the only moment he will have to get with the whole team, working with them, will be just 2 weeks to prepare for the World Cup. And honestly, I'm not expecting much, but I'm hoping for the best because Ghana has always been one of the favorites when it comes to the World Cup, being a team from Africa because of the previous performances being done. So it won't be easy, honestly, because coaches, especially when having a team and working with them with this shorter period, you always find it difficult.
And so that was former Ghana defender Kojo Asamoah speaking. Still on the World Cup and the Black Stars, former Ghana defender Daniel Opare has also added his voice. He has urged the Black Stars to build a team rather than rely on individuals at the forthcoming Mundial. Opare adds that making it out of the group stages will be huge for the 4-time African champions. He told 3 Sports in an exclusive interview.
To be frank, I think we will suffer a little bit. That's the truth. Sometimes the truth needs to be spoken, I love these boys, but I think we've not gotten a team yet. Okay. We have the players, we have the talent, but we've not gotten a team yet. I think that's the problem. I think they can, if we are able to even get out from the group stage, I think Ghanaians should be happy. Because I think this is the time that we have to build a team around these boys, because they are good players. I'm not going to take that away from them. They have the talent to really, go big, but also I think they should sustain them for a while. Sometimes the changes is also too much. It's affecting the team. Right. You understand? Yeah. So when you change the players so much, this one comes today, tomorrow another one is in there, tomorrow, sometimes we should just focus. If the player is doing good in his club and he's playing for the Black Stars, we keep him.
So that was former Ghana defender Daniel Opare speaking. Before we go, the Confederation of African Football, that is CAF, has publicly confirmed a unanimous backing from its 54-member association for Gianni Infantino's re-election as FIFA president. The 56-year-old football chief, who replaced Sepp Blatter at the head of world football's governing body in 2016, is up for re-election in 2027 with a view to overseeing another 4-year cycle as president. Bringing an end to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 and Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Andrew Sefa Bamfo.